Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking your lunch hour to join us to learn more about the North Sacramento River Corridor interbasin coordination efforts that are underway. As you can see on the map depicted on the screen, the North Sacramento River Corridor includes these seven groundwater subbasins. And let's talk a little bit about what we would like to accomplish in today's meeting, and then we'll give some introductions of the presenters during today's meeting. So what we'd like to do is introduce you to the Interbasin Coordination Framework and its implementation process. This Interbasin Coordination Framework will get into some background, and then we'll provide you with an update on how it's being implemented. Then we're going to work really hard to leave a good 15 to 20 minutes during this 1 hour webinar for questions and input, and then let you know what other opportunities there will be to stay involved. And just to assure you right here up front, we look forward to having a much more in-depth conversation with you about interbasin coordination in this corridor later this spring at an in-person workshop, which has yet to be set, but we'll make sure that we get that information out to you in the way that we did for today's webinar. So just quick introductions before we jump into this. My name is Tanya Carlone. I am a facilitator with the Consensus Building Institute, and I'm here with my colleague, Stephanie Horry, who is also with CBI. The local stakeholders did request our services through the Department of Water Resources Facilitation Support Services program. Also making some opening comments today, which will happen in just a moment, is Supervisor Todd Kimmelshoe, who's a Butte County Supervisor, and also a GSA representative who's been a part of these interbasin coordination discussions that have been taking place. And then from Butte County Department of Water Resource Conservation, Christina Buck is here as well. And Christina is going to be able to help us dig into some of the more technical parts of the conversation today. So with that, I'll just hand it off to Supervisor Kimmelshoe to make some opening comments.
Thank you, Tanya. It's nice to have you here, and we appreciate all the work that you've done to put this together. We look forward to working with you in the future. As Tanya said, I'm a county supervisor in Butte County, also sit on the board of directors of the VINA GSA, and also on the board of the Butte Subbasin. So I've been intimately involved in some of this, of the early work that we've done as far as interbasin coordination. We've had a group that's of subbasin representatives that's met, including myself, to dive into these conversations and are here today to discuss some of our initial work with you. We look forward to sharing more with you at an in-person meeting like Tanya just said. We believe that the groundwater basins are hydrologically connected, and we share the Sacramento River as our boundary. Therefore, decisions and actions in one subbasin can affect a neighboring subbasin. And as most of you know, the Department of Water Resources will be reviewing our groundwater sustainability plans for interbasin coordination efforts and potential impacts to or from adjacent subbasins, and an alignment, see if we are aligned with our thresholds and objectives. Also, regional coordination offers significant opportunities to work locally together. We can work together to enhance or understand the system. We can protect shared water resources. We can reduce duplicative services and efforts and solve problems together through coordinated efforts. All this will help us achieve long-term groundwater sustainability across the region, which obviously is very, very important to all of us. Just in closing, I just want to say getting to know your neighbors is important. In exchanging ideas, we need to do that. and to get out in front of any conflicts and work together. You know, as parts of California are reducing their water available to farmers and to residential efforts, we in Northern California want to make sure that we do a good job of maintaining and sustaining our groundwater. So this is a big part of it. Collaboration is going to be very important. So with that, Tanya, thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. We appreciate you being here and for making some opening remarks. I'll just note that there are several other GSA representatives who are here, and when we get to the Q&A in particular, we do encourage you to be a part of the conversation. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Stephanie Horry for just a moment, who is going to help us with some participation protocols and also to make sure that you know that you have a lifeline if you're having some technical difficulties. Stephanie?
Thanks, Tanya. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we dive in, I do have just a few of these housekeeping notes to ensure this hour is going to go very quickly, and we do have a pretty fair-sized group. So, just a reminder for folks that we do want to hear from everyone. So, please just help us out. Be mindful of sharing the air, so that way we can get to as many voices as possible. We are working toward a shared understanding, so remain curious, ask questions, clarifying those ideas. And then in terms of actual Zoom logistics, to keep the focus on presentations and frankly making the technical logistics just easier and simpler given the number of folks coming in. We have set up the Zoom chat so that way it goes to the host, myself, or the co-host during the presentations portion. When we get to the Q&A portions, we'll open up the Zoom chat to everyone. You can use the hand raise function to get into the queue to speak aloud, and then we'll help unmute you during that time. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties during today's webinar, you can Zoom chat myself, or you can email me, and I put my email into the Zoom chat for you there. So that's all I have, and I'll turn it back over to Tanya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie will also be sharing quite a few links during the presentation so that you have the most relevant resources and reference materials at your fingertips. And if you'd like to, and if you know how to save your chat, you will be able to have access to that after this meeting. But just to say, it is being recorded and it will be posted immediately after, or within the next couple days at least, to the Interbasin Coordination website, which Stephanie is providing in chat so that you can have that. And I would say if there's one link you want to pay attention to, it's that one, because all of the other materials that we're going to reference today and then future materials will be posted on that website. So as I said, this is really our presentation overview. What we're attempting to do today is we'll give you an overview of the Interbasin Coordination Framework that has been agreed upon by many of the subbasins, all of them who are a part of this corridor and many more in the North Sac Valley. And then we're going to let you know what implementation has taken place and then where we are right now in the development of a work plan, which will describe how implementation will continue in the next following years. And then we'll do our best at around 12:40 to open it up for Q&A in the way that Stephanie described. And then we'll just a few minutes before the top of the hour, make sure to let you know how you can continue to be involved. So let me just go to the background and some introduction on this framework. And we are going to go through this in a stepwise way because it's a very foundational, we think, for everybody to understand what this framework says and how it came to be. So during GSP development in 2020 to 2021, the 11 subbasins in the North Sac Valley, and you can see them even even though this is a very colorful and detailed map. But 11 of these subbasins prepared an Interbasin Coordination Report. And again, Stephanie will put that in chat so that you can have a direct link to that report, which is on the website, which it established this mutually agreed upon framework. And it was basically the GSAs committing to different pillars or categories in which there would be sustained and ongoing collaboration and coordination across boundaries. And also in that report, it indicated where there were features that were held in common, and therefore different corridors were established. And so in this corridor of the North Sacramento River Corridor is this very large river system that is running through and is often the shared boundary between subbasins. So that makes up this corridor where 7 subbasins are participating. And you can see that there are Antelope, Butte, Colusa, Corning, Los Molinos, Red Bluff, and Vina. And just to say, those are in Tehama County, Glenn, Colusa, and Butte County. I'll just note for those of you who are participating from Butte County, there is an additional subbasin in Butte County, that's Wyandotte Creek. It's not a part of this corridor, it's part of what we refer to as the Feather River Corridor. And there are coordination efforts going on in the southern part of the region as well, but that's not the focus of today's conversation. And as I said, we have initiated some conversations about how to develop a work plan to implement this framework going forward. Now, there have just been 2 meetings, and all of these 7 subbasins have representatives, and it's a combination of staff and elected GSA representatives that are part of that. We are sharing in the chat a roster of your GSA representatives, and we encourage you, because you may, after this, have more in-depth conversations that are specific to your subbasin, and we do encourage you to reach out to your primary contact. And again, this roster can be found on the Interbasin Coordination Regional website. Now, why is this a really important and good time for this to be happening? Is because plans were submitted in 2022 in this region, and the regulations for the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act state that every 5 years there needs to be an evaluation of how you're doing in the implementation of your GSP and in meeting your milestones. And so that first evaluation is just right around the corner and is due to the Department of Water Resources in January 2027. And this is a really good time for everyone to get together and say, okay, when it comes to interbasin coordination, what is it that we want to make sure that all of us consistently say our priorities in that periodic evaluation. I do want to say, as I noted before, that there are other corridors, and I want to assure you that there are also just neighbor-to-neighbor interbasin coordination discussions that are taking place. The focus here is on what is of a regional scope in this corridor. Okay, so that framework that was established set out these 5 collaborative pillars. And we're going to, as I said before, we're going to go through each of them in turn. Pillar 1 is information sharing. The second is joint analysis and evaluation. The third, coordination on mutually beneficial activities. The fourth, coordinated communication and outreach. And the fifth, issue resolution. So let's go ahead and move through these and how this is going to be organized again. So we're starting with information sharing. Pillar 1 is that these top bullets describe what's in the framework, what the GSAs committed to in the initial development of the framework. And then the second part under progress update is what our conversations thus far, what the update is for upholding those commitments and continuing to move them forward. So Pillar 1, information sharing, says that GSAs in this region commit to inform each other of changing conditions, to share annual reports, which are due to DWR every April 1st, and the associated interim progress reports, as well as to share data and technical information that helps the region work towards gaining a shared understanding of what's happening across and along basin boundaries. So the conversations that, again, we started in late fall, the GSA representatives have affirmed this information sharing pillar by recommending that they continue to have regular meetings, and they've committed to have at least one formal meeting a year and more as is warranted, depending on what may be unfolding. And then in addition to more formal meetings where they all come together, they've committed to, and as Todd said, acknowledge really the importance of knowing your neighbors and knowing who those contacts are, and then having just ongoing informal outreach to neighbors when questions arise or you'd like more information or want to share anything that may be important or critical. And then also continuing to use other existing collaborative venues like the North Sac Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Planning Group, which is also a public venue. And I believe that there is a standing item on that IRWIM agenda that gives updates on what is happening in the region for SIGMA implementation and specifically for interbasin coordination. Pillar 2, a joint analysis and evaluation. So what the GSA is committed to when developing this framework was to evaluate and compare contents of groundwater sustainability plans, focusing on gaining a common understanding of basin conditions at boundaries, and then through that identifying significant differences and then being able to assess potential impacts of concerns related to those interactions at the boundaries. Okay, so this is very consistent with what Todd said and is required by the regulations. We need to gain an understanding of what's happening at the boundaries and if there may be potential impacts from one basin to another. And a progress update on this is soon after those GSPs were submitted, work began on this to do a GSP evaluation. That was completed in 2025. And the lead technical consultant was Lisa Porta with Montgomery and Associates. And some or many of you may have attended those webinars, and they were broken out by the different corridors that are in this framework report. And in July, there was a webinar for the North Sac River Corridor. And again, Stephanie is sharing with you links to that webinar that took place. You can see the slide deck, you can listen to the recording, which I found very helpful. And if you really want to take a deeper dive, you can read the technical memo, which is also included there and on the website. So the good news here is that much of that joint analysis and evaluation has taken place. And why it's important is that it helps us to really lay the foundation for this next pillar, Pillar 3, which starts to explore, well, what are the things that are of priority that regionally and in this corridor we should be working on together. And the results from Pillar 2 really did help to inform what continues to be kind of really important to explore together. And in a moment, I'm just going to give sort of an overview of what that Pillar 3 says and a very quick progress update. And then I'm going to hand it over to Christina, who's been an important technical liaison with a companion technical effort that is taking place within this Pillar 3. So Pillar 3, the GSAs under this pillar commit to communicate, coordinate, and collaborate on what they deem mutually beneficial activities, primarily to address where we have data gaps at the subbasin boundaries. And depending on what they decide to pursue together, it may require them to collectively look for funding and to move forward various projects and management actions that could provide benefits at those boundaries. And in the update, I'll just mention what some of those are. And then in this pillar, there's a realization that, again, especially if there are efforts that are going to require quite a bit of time and funding, it is important to leverage existing collaboratives. And Christina will talk a little bit about that, one that's already being leveraged with NACWA, the Northern California Water Association. And so getting to the progress update, where we are on this, is that from the Pillar 2 of joint analysis, GSA's identified that really coordination on interconnected surface waters, and Christina will tell us more about what this is, what this means, is an essential next step for us to really understand what these data gaps are at the boundaries, to answer some of the critical questions that all of us on this call have in mind. And so I'll leave that to Christina, who will be able to speak to that much more effectively than I can. And then just to say that there have been discussions, initial discussions of other potential coordinated activities. And they are things like recharge, monitoring at the boundaries, coordination on domestic well mitigation programs. Some of the subbasins are moving forward actively in developing those programs, as well as on some demand management programmatic efforts that are happening in some of these subbasins. So coordinating on those and seeking to learn and making them consistent when appropriate and where relevant may be something of interest. So with that, Christina, I'll pass it on to you to tell us a little bit more about how we're pursuing this joint effort around interconnected surface waters.
Sure, great. Thanks, Tanya. Again, I'm Christina Buck, Assistant Director with Butte County Department of Water and Resource Conservation, and we work in 3 subbasins in Butte County, and then through Interbasin Coordination with many of you across the region. So a couple things. First, I'll just define interconnected surface water. It's one of the 6 sustainability indicators, so things that the GSAs and GSP needs to keep an eye on and have monitoring for and define sustainable management criteria for. And so it's really, as Tanya mentioned, it's risen to the top as a topic of regional coordination, really because there's a recognition that as these creeks and streams either serve as basin boundaries between multiple subbasins or cross over, between multiple subbasins, such as Butte Creek that starts in the Vina subbasin, moves down into the Butte subbasin, or the Sacramento River, which is really a boundary between all of these subbasins in this corridor, that a regional management approach is really needed and beneficial. And so the Northern California Water Association has a technical working group on this topic and has had really since earlier development of groundwater sustainability plans. And technical consultants who are now working with GSAs throughout the region on their periodic evaluations have recognized a desire and a need to coordinate on this topic. And so because of my technical background in hydrogeology and modeling experience and water resources management, I can kind of play this liaison role between the GSA representatives and this Interbasin Coordination Group and the technical folks who are working with the data and the models and the tools. So really, there's a few key topics related to interconnected surface water. First, I'll back up a little bit and define again. Interconnected surface water refers to this recognition that the groundwater system in some places is connected to the surface water system, or creeks and stream flow. And so in some cases, the streams like Sacramento River, for example, is is contributing water or flow or recharge from the river into the subbasins, into the groundwater system. In other cases, water is flowing from the groundwater system into the river and contributing to stream flow. So understanding and characterizing the physical system, where is it connected? What is that flow? What's the nature of which direction that flow is happening? Does it change from one direction to another over time? So just trying to understand the dynamics of kind of the physical system is part of it. And so key topics related to that, of course, are data collection and monitoring. What data collection, additional data is needed, or data collection is needed to better understand and characterize those connections. Modeling is a piece of it, and being able to estimate ultimately the effects of groundwater pumping on interconnected surface water. And so modeling integrated groundwater surface water modeling tools become useful in making some of those estimates. And then coordinating with the Department of Water Resources and understanding, what they are thinking in terms of how this topic gets really integrated and addressed through the law and the requirements of the groundwater sustainability plans and what the GSAs need to do. So those are kind of the key topics. As the groups have been working on periodic evaluations, and go ahead, you can go to the next slide, it became clear that maybe putting some ideas to paper, pen to paper, in the form of an ISW work plan would be helpful. Again, the overall focus is data sharing, collaborating, learning from each other, as there are technical teams kind of working in each of these subbasins, but developing a shared approach which can adapt over time. And that's certainly going to happen as we have a better understanding of kind of how to deal with this very complicated topic. So the work plan is in progress. It's being drafted by technical folks from all of these subbasins to help support the periodic evaluation work that Tanya described. This periodic evaluation is due in next January for each of these subbasins. And so this work plan would identify and outline the specific activities, data collection and modeling related activities that could really help further the understanding of ISW in the Sac Valley. It's important to recognize that it's really meant to be information to support decision making. The decisions remain, at the GSA levels and with each GSA. So how this information, much like how the Interbasin Coordination Report and Framework was put together kind of collaboratively, and then each GSA decided kind of how it got integrated into their groundwater sustainability plan. It's kind of like that for this as well. This work plan will provide some information that then the GSAs can decide how to integrate that into their periodic evaluations or into their plans for monitoring in their own subbasins. So there's two main components to the work plan. One is this regional technical analysis, like I mentioned, really just some specifics though in terms of where and when should data be collected, what types of data, monitoring, groundwater level monitoring, stream gauges, new flow measurements to help better characterize the physical system. And then how might that data help improve our representation of the physical system in these groundwater models that may be used? And so establishing some of those workflow and data flow needs to do that. And it could include also just surface water specific reach. So for this reach of the Sacramento River, what field work might be helpful to help refine the understanding and then help refine the modeling representation in that reach. And so kind of reach specific field work. And then the second component of the work plan is more generally just providing a framework that can help support GSAs in addressing ISW within their own subbasin as well. So there's definitely a regional nature to some of these systems, Sac River, Butte Creek, I mentioned. There are others that need to be dealt with perhaps more regionally, but within a subbasin, there are also interconnected surface water issues. And so this work plan can also help GSAs hopefully kind of collectively or have some shared approach to how we are thinking about and addressing both the data, but also the policy piece of ISW within the periodic evaluations and ultimately our groundwater sustainability plans. So I will leave it there. Turn it back over to Tanya.
Thank you, Christina. It's really helpful, and this may be bringing up some questions for folks, and we'll be able to get to those very soon. Just want to continue on to make sure that you are grounded in each of the pillars of this framework. The fourth pillar is this coordinated communication and engagement. So I'll just mention that again, the GSAs in the framework at the time that they agreed to this, agreed to collaborate on a regional scale, public engagement and communications, and realizing that it's really important to, this is highly technical. I mean, just what Christina gave an overview of, some of it can be really technical, and it takes a good amount of time, discussion, and engagement for everyone to get to understand what's happening. So to both to promote awareness, maintain continuity and institutional knowledge, and then to enhance public trust. It's important for there to be a transparency in these conversations and for there to be an openness. So here's a progress update on how we're implementing Pillar 4 and what some of the ongoing commitments are for coordinated communication and engagement. So this webinar is one of those examples. All of these subbasins came together and brainstormed on how they'd like to approach engagement during these conversations that they're having. They've had just 2 conversations, and everyone said, we're just starting these conversations, and we want to make sure that we have a public venue where we can share where we are in these discussions and learn more from all of you. What's most important to you about our groundwater management as it pertains to regional coordination in this geographic area? And so the webinar and then the spring workshop that will be scheduled probably in April are examples of that commitment to work together on a coordinated approach. We also have been developing outreach and engagement materials, and will continue to do so. You can go to, and Stephanie has already shared this link in chat, there is a fact sheet that describes what these current conversations are about and gives a little bit of background on why it matters. And we encourage you to take a look at that. It's just a 2-pager. I think it's really helpful if you know of people who aren't here, but they are interested in this topic and maybe just starting to get informed about this kind of work and interbasin coordination. This is a good starting point, this fact sheet. And then there will be ongoing maintenance of the Interbasin Coordination website. So when you go there, you'll find all of these materials and then future materials. If you're curious about the last 2 meetings that the 7 sub-basin representatives have had, you can find the agendas and meeting summaries and any other relevant supporting materials on the website about those meetings. We'll continue to post everything that they look at on that website, and then you'll find future information about the upcoming workshop, as I already noted. And then, of course, we know that what this group is doing is putting together a work plan. Ultimately, that work plan, the final product, will be also included there, but not before it's discussed at the public workshop. Okay, I'd like to just take a few minutes before we get to our Q&A and to hear what's going on with folks. And Ben, I see your hand just went up, and we will be opening up Q&A after this final step in the framework. So the issue resolution process is Pillar 5. And so in the framework, again, when it was developed back in 2021 and included in GSPs, the GSA is committed to establish and follow an agreed upon process for resolving conflicts. So as we learn more and gain a deeper understanding of what's happening at these boundaries, there may be instances in the future where there is some potential question or some conflict that emerges around a perceived or real impact at the boundaries. Also in the regulations, the Sigma regulations, there is a provision, and when you go, and you can go to the framework report to read more about this section, that states that you can enter into a voluntary interbasin coordination agreement. And so that's a place where if something rises to that level of importance that may require an issue resolution process and some kind of more formalized agreement, there is a process in place so that everyone knows what course they will take when something such as that will arises. So here's the progress update. That's what the pillar said. And I'll just say that we've only had 2 meetings. We haven't spent a lot of time on Pillar 5 yet, but what we have discussed so far is that GSA representatives, they confirmed the intent of this pillar, that it is important to have this process in place so that they can be proactive around conflict resolution and how to approach it if needed. It's always good to know how you're going to approach a conflict before you're steeped in one. And I just want to also speak to what Todd said before. What's so important, and perhaps the most fundamental piece of interbasin coordination, is simply getting to know your neighbors and knowing who to call, and you can pick up a phone if something emerges. And these kinds of relationships developed and stewarded over time can help us ease the way if such conflict should emerge. And the other thing that the GSAs have discussed thus far in these 2 meetings is that they're keeping in mind what would be or could be or might be potential scenarios that would warrant considering a more formal interbasin coordination agreement. And so we don't know, it's just speculative at this time, but you heard Christina give an overview of a work plan that's being undertaken to figure out and to do additional analysis for interconnected surface waters. If something, if further funding for that is required, that may warrant some sort of cost share. If grant funding doesn't fully cover it, for example, if grants should become available, that is a potential for a more formal interbasin coordination agreement. Again, that would still be voluntary, but more formalized. So this is where we are, and just it's more conceptual at this approach with the issue resolution, but there is clearly an acknowledgement that it's important to have an approach in place for if it is needed. So with that, I hope that has been helpful for you to get a grounding in the pillars of that we're working with for our interbasin coordination discussions, and for you to have an update of where we are. So I'd really like to open it up now to all of you. You can raise your virtual hand, and we also encourage you to ask questions in chat if that's what you prefer. And Stephanie is opening up chat so that it is available to everyone. And we'll work together as a team to answer your questions. Now, there are quite a lot of people on today's call, 91 right now, and we may not get to all of your questions, but remember, you have that roster where you can reach out to your primary contact in your subbasin who can continue the conversation with you. And then also, before we leave today, we're going to give you a link to a confidential poll if you'd like to prefer to make comments or ask your questions confidentially, and you can include questions there. And all of these questions and comments will be summarized and brought back to the GSA coordination group, because they're going to help us understand what's most important to you. And as we plan for that workshop in the spring, we want to make sure that what we're bringing to you is responsive to what you most care about. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and open it up for Q&A. And I see Ben King, you've had your hand raised, and so let's go to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting this on. Regarding the work that's been done before already, the technical memorandum. I want to point out that, and Christina knows this, that the east side of the Clusa subbasin was part of a basin boundary modification, and it was done for administrative purposes because RD 1004 did not want to become part of the west side. And so basically the area that wasn't included in RD 1004 was included as part of the subbasin. There are a couple of unique geological issues with that portion of the Coosa Subbasin. One is, of course, the presence of the Sutter Buttes, which has it's a unique geomorphic uh, a feature for the Sacramento Valley, but also the presence of the Willows Fault, which actually follows the Sacramento River and then around Princeton starts actually going to the east side of the river. So I do not believe there's any, I do not believe that the east side of the Sacramento River, which is included in Clusa Subbasin, which was annexed to Clusa Subbasin, which was previously part of the West Butte Basin, is hydrologically connected to the west side of the Clusa Subbasin. And I don't believe that the hydrological conceptual model was properly, I don't know if it was done to make that connection, but the Willows Fault is significant. It is actually a fault that is moving, potentially a subduction zone. And so the way water runs, it's not clear. So from a technical point of view, I think that needs to be revisited because there should be different policy for the east side of the Sacramento River and the west side of the Sacramento River as regards to the Clusa Subbasin. Thank you.
Ben, thank you. And I know that Lisa Porta, the technical consultant who did the GSP evaluation, is also here. I think that I would leave it to, I would ask if some of our GSA representatives who have more of a technical grounding or Lisa Porta would like to respond to Ben's comment here.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. This is Lisa. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak, but um, I think this is something that we're continuing to develop and consider in the technical realm of interbasin coordination. So I think I will leave it up to this for now. And if Christina wants to add more to that from a GSA perspective and the technical lead, I will let her chime in too.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Thanks for your comment, Ben. And that's something that could be looked at, as part of the periodic evaluation process.
Thank you, Ben, and sorry to spring that on you, Lisa, but thank you. Okay, please, we are here to hear what's most important to you. And again, this is focused on the North Sac River Corridor, these 7 subbasins. What's most important to you? What questions do you have, either about the presentation or anything that's been on your mind that you think is relevant to this regional coordination effort? I hope we haven't overwhelmed you with too much information. I'm not seeing any questions, or hopefully we were so clear that we answered some of your questions. I mean, there's a lot that we're continuing to do together, as you know, and still many questions that we're exploring to understand these interactions at the basin boundaries. But anything on your mind, this is a good time to ask. Yes, Marty Dunlap, go ahead. Let's see if we can unmute Marty.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I read the report previous to the chat to this webinar, so I've already been exposed to this information. I was hoping to hear about what transpired in the 2 previous meetings and the progress that is being made. I was part of the Integrated Regional Water Management Coordination program that started probably in 2010. And I was wondering if we were building on that, the same the same entities were involved, didn't have this type of coordinated outline, but there certainly was a lot of information that had been disseminated and worked on. Is any of that being incorporated into this so that we can move ahead more quickly? I mean, April, having another public meeting, knowing that the updates are due in January 2027, seems like a pretty short window of time to work on the coordination, particularly on trying to get what our priorities are into the amendments for the GSPs.
Thank you, Marty. We really appreciate you doing that background reading before coming in. And hopefully some of these updates that we did provide about what's happening thus far in the meetings, you'll notice that we did include progress updates. But could I ask some of the GSA representatives who are on the call today if you have a more specific response to Marty's question? Particularly around the urgency and the periodic evaluation being around the corner and how we can make as much progress as possible on these interbasin coordination efforts. And so I'll take a stab at it. Christina, go ahead.
I can just speak to specifically to the ISW work plan that I described earlier. I think that the plan at this point, it's being drafted, as I mentioned. It will go to the GSA representatives at I think their next meeting for their discussion and some feedback. And so the goal, and then it'll become public for review as well. And then at that point, GSAs can decide how to incorporate it. So yeah, I would expect that all of that to kind of happen over the next several months so that subbasins have an opportunity to pull it in as desired, kind of in the back half of 2026. I think related to IRWM, Integrated Regional Water Management, and just that was mentioned by Tanya as kind of an existing area of information sharing and lines of communication, and Marty, you just mentioned it. So I just wanted to highlight at this point, it is many of the same entities and also many of the same staff members that are providing, staff support to the groundwater sustainability agencies, participate in the IRWM, are members of the IRWM TAC, Technical Advisory Committee, and then some of the GSA board members or board of directors sit on the IRWM board as well. Todd Kimmelshoe is an example of that. So that has been essentially a forum for information sharing over the last, since SIGMA was passed. There typically is a standing agenda item in which the staff members from each county provide an update on SIGMA related activities in the subbasins within their county. So it can be a helpful kind of regional forum for hearing in one place the highlights of what's happening in each subbasin.
Thank you, Christina. And then just to underscore what Christina did name this, but to underscore, Marty, that a more built out work plan that describes what the conversations, where the conversations are heading through this GSA coordination will be shared at that workshop. And so please stay tuned, continue to be involved, and I hope that you'll be there. And I see Aurelia Gonzalez, that your hand is up. Go ahead, let's get you off mute. There you go.
Hi there. I was wondering if there was any interagency coordination other than the data gaps that are specific to groundwater substitutions and in lieu recharge agreements between, the settlement contractors and the Bureau. Are those discussions being had?
Thank you for that good question. Could I lean on GSA staff and representatives to answer that specific question?
And for GSA representatives, you should be able to unmute yourself, but certainly just raise your Zoom hand and we can help you out there if you're having issues.
This is Cami. To Aurelia's question, and not specifically addressing the things that she just brought up, I will say, as a GSA representative, by the way, this is Cami, the Director of Water and Resource Conservation for Butte County. And in this forum, really representing the County of Butte GSA in the Butte subbasin, that from an interbasin coordination standpoint, as the discussion talked about kind of pillar 2 and the joint analysis and evaluation in the webinars that Lisa Porta did in previous last fall, taking that information and identifying where we're really focusing, or where I'm really focusing, is on the coordination of mutually beneficial activities. And at this time, I think in those meetings with GSA representatives, just discussing what things are happening, perhaps with some of the grant or Sigma funding that's been received, and knowing what others are doing, either to address some of DWR's comments in their periodic evaluations, or what they're implementing. For example, one of the things that I'm really interested in is the Colusa Subbasin's well mitigation program. So it has been more of an opportunity to know where people are at in some of the projects that they're working on, and how the GSAs kind of in the Butte Subbasin, perhaps even Vina, can utilize some of the work that they've done as examples to bring to our advisory committees and boards, so that to help them make some decisions. I don't think at this point there haven't been too many issues that we're working on resolving in that pillar 5 area. I think we're kind of still in the beginning stages. I know we're 5 years into this process with our plans, but maybe even the periodic evaluations might bring forward other things that we should be looking at specifically. So I think it's just more of a dialogue rather than and a greater understanding of what's happening in each basin from a management perspective.
Thank you, Cami. Jim, go ahead. Jim Graydon.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I had a question. I see from the notes coming out of one of your IBC meetings that one of the high priority topics is boundary flow analysis and modeling. And as I recall, Department of Water and Resource Conservation of Butte County sent a letter to DWR maybe last June or July, asking for support and guidance on some more coordination and standardization, perhaps, on modeling platforms. And I'm wondering what the status of that is. Where is it in the list of priorities for this group, and when might we be able to get a better understanding of the boundary flow analysis?
Yeah, great question. I can jump in. So I think it's a couple things. The third of the series of webinars last summer that Lisa Porta with Montgomery Associates did presented results from the Department of Water Resources' most recently released version 1.5 of the regional model that they maintain, C2V Sim Fine Grid. And so that was like a piece of the puzzle of just some information that's available and out there. In addition to that, I think really embedded in the interconnected surface water coordination topic is this modeling piece as well, and modeling collaboration. And so a lot of the kind of questions you raised are part of that conversation as well, I think. And I'm not sure how far the work plan will go in making recommendations, but I think that will be part of it. I think that will be a piece of the modeling topic that the ISW work plan wrestles with, is, what models are available, and which ones should we be trying to refine, and how do we work with the Department of Water Resources as they continue to maintain C2B Fine Grid, and really get, any data collection and field work that's done, get it into a place where it can help refine the modeling tools that DWR is using, and or if there's other models that continue to be used in the valley. What are the workflows and lines of communication that need to be established to make more of that kind of less distributed or separated out. So those ideas from that letter are continuing kind of in this ISW conversation.
Thank you, Christina and Jim. Excellent question. It's definitely what we all have on our minds. So thank you for asking it. I'll just name, we are getting to the top of the hour. There is a note here in chat from Lori Pierce. This doesn't necessarily pertain to groundwater except for surface water recharge, but I'm curious about how other water uses for surface water are factored in when considering collaborating on interconnected surface water among GSAs. Thoughts there, Christina, before we go to next steps and then provide a link for how people could continue to ask questions and provide comments. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a good answer for your question. Maybe I don't understand more context of what where it's coming from, but surface water numbers are estimated as part of the annual reports that the groundwater subbasins have to provide. And so it shows up there perhaps, but I would say probably not as directly tackled by the interconnected surface water as you kind of indicate. It's not as closely tied to groundwater, so.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to take too much time with my question. I'm just wondering how the other potential uses fit into the big picture.
Yes,
yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, they're I know in our subbasins there, we strive to estimate those uses when we're putting together the total water use estimates. So they're accounted for in that way.
Thank you, Christina. And I see that there are some responses in chat also to Lori, your comment, as well as a follow-up question. I don't know if there's a quick answer there to will there ever be an ecological threshold established before we do need to head into what's next.
I mean, as you know, Patrici, I think that those are policies setting that each of the GSAs can tackle within their periodic evaluations or GSPs. So it remains to be seen.
Yes, and then when it comes to who makes the decisions, it is within the purview of the individual GSAs in these respective subbasins. So thank you for underscoring that, Christina. And so please do go to your GSA meetings and ask these questions and continue to engage there. Okay, thank you all. Let's see what's next. As I mentioned, we want to know what's important to you, right? As we're preparing for this public workshop in the spring. So here you can scan this QR and go to the link and answer this question if you have, and respond here if you have any other questions or comments that you want the GSAs to keep in mind. We're going to be bringing all of this to the next GSA coordination meeting that will be happening in late February. And to make sure that we honor your time with 2 hours remaining, since many of you may be joining us during a lunch hour, we just want to again reiterate that you should go to this website. We're going to keep all of the information and work products there, and including today's webinar slides and a summary of particularly of the questions and comments that we've received. Go there for ongoing updates and make sure you use that roster and you reach out if you have questions of your GSA representatives to continue the conversation. We'd love for you to stay involved, whether it's going to the IRWM meetings, which are a public venue, attending your GSA's meetings, and then coming to the public workshop in Chico, which will likely be in April, and we'll make sure that we push out that information and publicity as soon as we have a date, so you can mark your calendars for when that is set. Okay, I think that's it. And if for some reason you want to reach out to the facilitation team, I mean, you'll want to start with your GSA representatives, but if you'd like to reach out to us, since we are involved in this regional effort, there's my name and my email. Don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you all being here today, and we very much look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Have a good rest of your day.